A very good evening, friends. I take great pleasure in introducing Kochery and the very eminent Mr. Ashoke Viswanathan to you. They will be in conversation on Shibu's book, Faith and the Beloved. Let me first introduce Ashoke Viswanathan, who is a national and international award winning filmmaker who is currently professor and dean at the Satyajit Ray Film and Television Institute, Kolkata. He has directed more than 150 film projects, including feature films, documentaries, short films, and television shows. Apart from the national awards, Ashoke Viswanathan had 5 Indian Panorama entries at the IFFI, is a Charles Wallace Scholar at Cambridge, and has won the Dishari BFGA Kalakar and the Jayus Awards, besides the Silver Torchlight Award at Yongyang. He has been a visiting professor at Tufts University, Boston, and Monmouth University, New Jersey. Thank you so much, Ashok Viswanathan, for being with us today. We are really, really excited and happy to have you and looking forward to you being in conversation with the author.
Thank you.
Shibu, yes. Shibu Kochery. He's a best-selling and award-winning author of Men and Dreams in the Dauladhar, graduated from the prestigious National Defence Academy, Khadak Wasia in 1981. He has served in the Indian Navy and commanded 2 warships. Post his retirement, he has executed hydroelectric projects in the Kaveri River Basin in Karnataka, Beas River Basin in Himachal, and Teesta River Basin in Sikkim. He holds a postgraduate degree in Defence Studies from Chennai University and an MA in English Literature from Pune University. Shibu has changed tack from the snow-clad mountains to the blue oceans and has been associated with the setting up of a shipping company in India. Faith and the Beloved is his second book. Many of the characters in the novel are inspired from those whom he has encountered during his extensive travel. Kochery Shibu was born in Kochi, Kangarapadi, and now lives in Bangalore with his wife and daughter. Thank you, Shibu, for agreeing to do this interview. We look forward with a lot of enthusiasm. And I now hand over to Ashoke Viswanathan to take the discussion forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mona.
Thank you very much, Mona, for that very kind introduction to both of us. But I personally feel that Shibu deserves every bit of it. As I was telling him, I'm fascinated by this novel, Faith and the Beloved. My apologies, I've not read the first novel, but I've read this one in detail. And it struck me from the very first moment that it was an intriguing piece of writing. It was something that gripped you, but also intrigued you, where you had lots of questions. And the way he has actually structured the narrative, that is very, very interesting. It is by no means a linear, straight narrative. The narrative, interpolates and extrapolates, and you go back and forth. And my first question to Shibu, after congratulating him for his endeavor, is, was it very deliberate on your part to create this kind of a narrative discourse?
Thank you, Ashok. Thank you for the kind words. Of course, yes, the narrative in terms of differing timelines and differing events in a not a linear narration, yes, it is by design, but also at the same time that, as I said, in all my writing, I start off with a lot of effort and research into character sketching. I believe the character should come live, and so a lot of it was uh, done as the novel was written. That means as you went along. So there were, the stories running in parallel, and as it happens in life, that the events need not be linear in many cases. Whenever the lives of two people or more than two people, when they cross each other, the crossing point may be one, but events before and after, then as in real life, they will be spread out in time and space. So I have taken that kind of an approach to in writing this. It comes with its own challenges. It's quite tough in writing also. That part I accept.
So, in fact, therefore, your novel is designed, but it is also spontaneous. There are things which you have done as you are writing. And one of the things that you have done, which I find very marvelous, is that there are many gray characters. You know, the characters are not solid in the sense that they are black and white, which is what makes it very real. I would compare it with, say, an Aravind Adiga, the kind of writing that he does. I like the character of Prem very much. It's a character which is not a negative character. I would not call it a negative character, but lots of shades of gray in the character. Could you tell us a little bit about Prem?
So, it's like, when you write any of these novels, when I always believe in taking what I call slice of a society into the background of all the writing. And I am a fan of history. And I believe that one of the, problems of many of the readers, and including me, is that, we always look at history from an individual prism or a prism that is given to you by the media or by the newspapers or by the powers be at that point in time. And there is a lot of skewing which takes place. So it takes a discerning reader to go back and look at events which happened dispassionately with a discerning mind and then try to correlate. So if you see, the book starts off with an event in the 1930s where, that was a time when our own Dr. Ambedkar had fallen out with Gandhiji for some time for the way the what he called the Dalits were not treated well or they were not being included. So there was a strife. And there was a period in time when there was what is called a Geneva Andolan which took place in that Hindi heartland. So these are events, and there was, that struggle of people to break out of the morass of getting tied down in the way they were tied down in the society and try to get out of it. So even starts with somebody who's breaking barriers, doing something, of course, crossing the line, not an accepted norm in any society, but he has done it. So when that gets carried forward, even after, let's say, a generation or two generations, there is no forgiving in our system. That means that system is so rigid that even after maybe 30 years, 60 years, it comes back and to haunt them. So now this is a reality in our, the Hindi heartland, where the caste and the caste equations have always been a bane for us, and it continues to be even today. Because even today, since you mentioned Aravind Adiga, he also highlights that one issue in very, very, let's say maybe slightly overstepping the line, but okay, you highlighted the issue. So what the character that Prem represents that segment of the society, even when someone, let's say, comes out, he tries to be, better than what he is, the society does not allow him. So there are shades of gray, and then you're trying to fight for what you think is right or in your own perception of how things should be. So that is how I said, I'll call that, more of a slice of life as a society is, without being judgmental on what he is
Right.
doing right or wrong.
I appreciate what you have said about your reading of history. So, like you have spent a lot of time in designing the characters, going into detail, and also going into the history. The second very thing that strikes you right between the eyes is the milieu. You have brought out the milieu brilliantly. If you permit, let me just read a few lines from the chapter on Naiti, which is very important and which I find it's almost visual, it's like a painting. Naiti was born in 1971 to the landed gentry in the village of Oriankara on the outskirts of Cochin. She was named after her grandmother, who died young. She was the fourth child and the only girl child in the Cheroril family. The Cheroril family owned large tracts of land, tea, and rubber estates, and were well placed in society. Her father, Jacob Cheroril, was the traditional Syrian Christian father who believed in the Lord and did not believe in sparing the raw. The church was an essential part of her childhood life. Her upbringing was strict and Syrian Christian by nature. She went to St. Peter's School, the family run local English medium school. The morning prayer with the family was a must before leaving for school. So was the prayer before dinner. The family followed fasting and feasting as per their Syrian Christian church. After her primary education, she followed her brothers to join the famous St. Lawrence School at Lovedale in Ooty. It took her 3 months to adjust to the hostel life and fall in love with school. She hated school vacations during summer and winter and dreaded the church-driven life at home. She categorized vacations into lots. The summer vacation was the wedding time. Starting from the Sunday after Easter, there was a flurry of weddings of near and distant families. Weddings were also silk dress events, where every woman and girl had to be clad in a silk dress or a silk sari. Women formed the never-ending gossip groups, and men formed the shop talk group. Baptisms formed the next group. All the cousins and country cousins who got married produced children, and in every vacation there were the baptisms to be attended too. There were the occasional funerals of the dead and the departed too. But that's just the beginning of the chapter on Maitri. I think it's very brilliantly written, and it shows your extreme knowledge, almost like the back of your palm, of that society. Could you tell us how you are able to write in such detail?
That, of course, is, I am from Kerala. I am a Syrian Christian. So the Syrian Christian life in Kerala, it's been part of me, and I've seen a lot of it. So, though of course this is not an autobiographical representation, but it is a slice of life from the traditional Syrian Christians of the, let's say, the things have changed quite a bit in this century, but the 70s, 80s was traditionally, yes, that was a large part of the society was like that. So a lot of the things that is written there is, let's say, in relates quite well to what happens in the Syrian Christian families, Syrian Christian traditions, the Syrian Christian way of life. And some of it was by design, because one of the things I believe in, that when I write, and even if it's a fiction novel, that a reader who reads as much as he reads a fiction must also get some value addition, a perspective on the background and the people, and something more than what is really available in the open literature. So many of this stuff written in this book will not be easily available to a reader, even on the, let's say, in open literature. Not easily available, not that it's not available, not easily available. So one of the aims was also to bring out this aspect of life, which to many readers like you found it fascinating. Many others have also told me this, that there was, yes, this aspect of life, which, okay, the people who are in it take it for granted, but as a reader, yes, at times it's like entering another world, and that is by design.
And that is what aids the narrative, a narrative which has got a lot of excitement, which is very much action driven. It also has so much of milieu and zeitgeist and background and research that makes you want to wait for those parts when they come, And both the parts, the ones which are really action packed and the ones which are, probing, which are trying to be more philosophical, more metaphysical, they are equally attractive. So I think it's a very good blend that you've achieved in this particular novel. And the end, which I will not, of course, reveal, but even in the end, you end with a kind of a, mellow tone, because in the middle, there's a lot of red hot stuff happening, but it ends with a kind of a mellow tone. Did you decide on the entire story at the beginning itself, or did it, as it progressed, achieve the form that it did?
So the if you see the blueprint of the story is there in the first chapter, because the first chapter kind of lays the clues to all that, which is discussed a number of times. There are two, three people who are reviewing the events which take place in the first chapter two, and to interpret it, to make sense out of it. So almost every word, every sentence has got a clue in it, which is the mystery and thrill part of it. So the second part of it is that I also believe that that in any of the storytelling and story writing, uh, it need not necessarily be like I keep telling, with many of the people say that in Hindi movies, the difference between a hero and a villain is that hero has a past which justifies his present, and villain does not have. So you do not know why he is the way he is. So the audience always relates to the hero, whichever way is presented, because there is a justifiable relation from background, from his past to the present. So in my writing, I will always, whether it's 5 characters or 8 characters, I try to give the shades of background for everyone. So whether it's a hero or a villain, there is a past to him and there is a present, and it's for the reader to decide whether you think is it's right or wrong or whatever you want to see, or being judgmental. So the second aspect of it is that the not everything need not finish off. As I say that when crime is always when a line is crossed in the society or in somebody's life. Nobody plans to be a criminal, or nobody plans a criminal activity. But there are times in life when you have left with no options but to cross the line, because that is the only option that you have at that point in time to save whatever you stand for, value for. And there are times when you have to fight for what you stand for. So a lot of the times, the relationship bonding between women and your approach to life does get philosophized the way you have been brought up and what your value systems are. So the end is also by design. The last chapter, of course, is by design to keep it a little bit of philosophical in its approach and approach to life. It's for the readers to read in between and decipher. So whilst the blueprint was there in the first chapter, yes, this novel as I wrote, as characters came in and as events developed, because I spent a lot of time, was first almost 1.5 years when in researching of characters, background stories, putting the material together. So as you start writing and picking the characters and weaving it through, there have been changes which happened as you start writing. So you have a blueprint, but of course, it has taken a number of iterations. Then, of course, when you go to the editor, there is one final, what do you call that? One baptism in fire, as I call it, where the editor takes you to the task, and there's one final round which comes out. So yes, initially there's a kind of now broad outline in mind, which is there in the first chapter, but a lot of it is there is twists and turns have been as the writing took place, as the characters developed and as the event developed.
And as you said that, if I were to use some film parlance, it is both documentary and fiction, because you have introduced certain very real events, like the incident at the Taj Mahal Hotel, the terrorist strike, the LTTE tract. Now, these needed to have been researched, I suppose. What was your approach to including such events?
One of the things that I believe in is, that as I said, since this book is primarily targeted Indian audience, and a lot of the young readers, when I speak to them, most of them, some of them say LTT, they almost sound surprised. He was in an organization like that. So it is many of the what as I said, one of the efforts was to bring in the contemporary events in the recent history of India, how it has affected us, and it is important for readers to understand. When things go wrong in a society, you cannot forget it and move forward. We must know what went wrong, what happened, to what level people went. So it is that what which makes us wiser as we move forward in understanding and moving forward. So the LTT was, till date, I consider the fiercest terror organization that ever existed. I mean, I don't think anybody has matched the levels to which they have got, and I don't think anybody will, to motivating the people and bringing in the concept of suicide, terrorism, and telling people that, because it throws asunder a complete legal system, because your complete legal system is based on a premise that a man he or she values his life. Now, if you tell someone that, killing yourself is the best thing to do, then where is the legal system? There's nothing you can do to him. So the way we have structured a society, and way we have structured a legal system. So when you come back to this limiting line, it becomes very difficult. So LTT pushed it outside the limits of anything that you can do. What can you do to man when they decided that the value in life is in killing yourself for a cause? And they could convince people to that, that it's better to die as a hero, Veera Maranam, as you used to call it, as the chief convinced people, and so many of them. So even today, what others have followed after that, what the other terror organization, it's only a shade of what he has achieved. Nobody could really motivate people to the level which that organization could, and where people heroically went into this kind of stuff. So I deliberately wanted LTT. Everything was not good about them, and there's so many things that they did which are sinister. And
And
they were
just
raising
to
money.
interrupt, sorry to interrupt. As you were saying just before we started this live broadcast, you had personal experience also being in the naval forces at the time. Could you just also talk a little bit about your personal experience?
So to the extent that that I said that we had visited Colombo just before this the problem started in 1982 when things were quite normal there. So we had seen one set immediately after that the started. And as part of my naval career, we were part of that vessels which patrolled. There was a point in time when they were patrolling between India and Sri Lanka to keep the people at bay. So, and the IPKF operations happened when we were serving, and a whole lot of my colleagues were involved in that by virtue of being in a graduate from India. A lot of my peer group from the Army, Air Force people involved. So, the events which took place there were kind of day-to-day communication or worry for all of us at that point in time, that how we landed up in this kind of mess from all sides. So a lot of the events were not, but of course, it at some point it went beyond control, and when events went out. So to that extent, yes, even LTT and events which happened in and around Sri Lanka, a lot of it was part of our career life. So to that extent, yes, I was quite familiar with that part of it. And even with notwithstanding, the research which went into actually finding out when someone actually travels to war torn Sri Lanka, what happens just when that war has come to an end. So that's how that character starts. And even that event which is quoted, it's an actually that I remember that event when it took place sometime in the 80s, where there was an incident, I think 86 or 87. There was an actual event of a family being murdered by a mob in Colombo, and the father comes out of the car, burning car, and the children were not set fire. So he takes the children and decides that children will die with him than being left to the mob. Now that kind of had stayed with me for quite some time. This particular event, that plight of a father, where he had to kill his two children, girls with him, and then opting to leave them with the mob what was outside. So the one of the characters is developed from there, where of course that boy is not there in that story. That boy is brought in here, who is to leave to fight another day, and then that he is living for a cause. Even the cause is over, he's still living for it, as it happens in many of these cases. So that part, yes. So I just by design, I said, our people should know that it is we had a large issue which had for about 3 decades. It had permeated into every level of our society, which had with the pluses and the minuses.
You have both a micro level at the crime, as a crime story. There's a micro level and a macro level, because you have included something like LTT, which has a huge history, philosophy, and as you're saying, it's one of the most ferocious, if you may call it that, organizations of all time, because for them, even, sacrificing one's life is not at a premium, they can do it. So that is something which is very interesting. And in the process, you have created some very, very believable characters. The reason why I said earlier also, why this book is so dear to me is, one, because it is with an international flavor relating totally to Indian or, Asian events. And secondly, it actually creates characters which are very believable. If you look at the character of Naidi Cheroril, she seems absolutely a real character. And the way you brought in the IIT, the competition there. And these are places where I've been to, and the IIM after that. Was she modeled on any real character in your experience?
No, it is not a lift off from a person whom I know, definitely not. But and as I said, a lot of these things are, I have a lot of friends from IIT and IIMs, and pretty familiar with, what, how things happen there, and so to that extent, it is there is no one particular individual on which she is based, but the idea was to bring out, because I have come across, after the liberalization of the economy and courtesy the IT sector, it has been many times that true talent of women who are capable of, let's say, understanding business better than men, which is something which many men find it difficult to digest. That, but as the traditional businesses where you're standalone and running a business was okay, but as your after liberalization took place and as the economy grew, and if you did not know the sector, if you did not know how to study the sector and to see the trends at consolidation which takes place, a lot of the things go out of the ambit of the traditional family run businesses unless they really keep the wits about them. And there have been actual cases where it is the IIT, IIM have thrown out really some talented women who have understood the business very well. So this is also to highlight that point, to that the traditional houses, many of them even today, even in this 21st century, they still believe that the business decisions is kind of still the male hierarchy. But that is also by deliberately to bring out as to finally it is not so much about man or woman, yet it is about understanding the business. If it's a woman who understands it for you, she is the one who will bring in results. So that is that deliberately to highlight that one aspect. And there are many like her, may not be large enough in number, but there are successful, let's say, IIT, IIM graduates who made a mark for them and proven that they can develop business and do things. So there are many such stories which are there, which are known in the open media also today. Many people have talked about. So of course, that character was built to reflect that one aspect of India.
And where do you think Alice will go from here? You've given a hint that she will go into academics. What do you think? What will happen to Alice?
I have not actually. I have not thought, and I have not put anything beyond what is written there. So it is like this. Normally it's one of the. There's what was also an effort to tell the young people also that even in today's society, if you keep your wits about you in any situation, and if you are able to, finally it's all about thinking and your ability to think, and without losing your wits, that will keep you alive in any environment. That has always been the as a fact of life, whether it is 21st century, 20th century, or go back to BC times, go back to Chanakya's time, story is the same. It's like people say that it's the mind which has to win first. Then only events will unfold. I mean, because in the military there's a saying, it says that battles are fought and won in the minds of people. So it is the mind which matters, and that is what people should group. And the
Right.
brawn has got
And
its relevance.
the relevance is a very, very, very key word here, because I find a very interesting postmodern aspect in your novel. In the very first scene involving Alice, she's in a tremendous trouble, and it's almost like a computer game where she's trapped and she has to escape from that. So you have that feel, that frenetic feel of computer games also in a very subtle, metaphoric way, which is, touching your novel. Was that thought of, or it came naturally? Because that's the world which the children of today are dealing with, the world of computer games.
Yes, that is also by design also, and has also kind of thrown in a caution in that. If you see that the as the evil elements are into every aspect, including games. So if you see that there have been many of the incidents I brought out as to how in that also there's a case wherein the computer hackers get in and you to get to the controllers to control the games, to manipulate and get into a game, and thereafter steal the identity, or play with the children which are playing the game. So
Right.
the basic norms of safety, security, as much as it is in real life, it is equally applicable in computer games which they are playing. So that was deliberately a game because a lot of the children get into it, and there also there's a lot of battle of wits which happens. You have to expand on it to make sure that you're not losing out on an identity. Nobody's stealing your identity. So that aspect has been brought in, and with a deliberate aim to caution the passionate computer gamers that not everything about that domain is also hunky dory. There could be trouble there also when people come in.
Right, right. Uh, One other aspect which might have been intriguing to some people, might be even shocked by it, that there's a lot of open, blatant sexual references in the entire novel. One in terms of the language, and two in terms of explicit sexual, scenes. What is the main reason for you to uh, introduce this in the manner that you have?
So that is actually one of the aspects that which has come about is like if you see the basics of the whole story takes off on a very one pleasant topic with many of the readers, and many of the readers specifically, I'm telling that many of the readers who are what I call drawing room readers or WhatsApp readers who horizon is normally within the drawing room and do not have much exposure to society. So they do find it very unpleasant that even some of the readers have told me also that you have not handled the subject of rape, let's say, sensitively enough, which is the start point from where that trouble start, and it's a someone rapes and then the lady decides there is no law, shoot him and kill him. So one of the corollary that of course I just to bring about a little bit of history again. During the beginning of the 20th century, the Maharaja of Patiala's one of his uncles, one Mr. Khadak Singh. So he wanted to be a judge,
Mm.
and the Maharaja requested the British that my uncle should be the judge here. So Britishers told him, you do not know the law, you do not know the regulations. What is your qualification? So he asked them that what is it that you want? So they said that we want that law and order should be maintained, that the law is enforced correctly. He said, I will do that. So leave that to me. That is what we have been doing all this while. I'll continue to do that. So he became a judge, and the first murder case that came to him was one woman whose husband was murdered, and there were 4 accused. And the woman said that these people beat her husband to death in the farm in front of her eyes, and the men refused. And there was a lawyer who was representing these 4. So Khadak Singh said, okay, so these are the 4 accused. They said, okay. Said, who are you as a lawyer? He said, I'm their lawyer. Why are you representing them? He said, that means you're also party to their crime. He said, no, I'm a lawyer. No, it doesn't matter. So they said, decreed, hang all 5 of them. So his judgment came to an end there, and all 5 are, put to the gallows. After that, for that duration, next 8 years when he was there was no question of any murder anywhere in that area. Now, the concept of justice and concept of execution of justice is runs from society to society. And the way we have done it is our society in this matter has been very, very brutal. That's only language of people understand. So that means his case is very clear-cut cases. You have now there's nothing to discuss about. You make an that this is how the law is going to be dealt. People fall in line. So now this is one aspect which, let's say, now this is one of the weaknesses in the whole this, let's say, if you go by the penal code, punishable by 7 years. Okay, that is, how does it matter? Someone, let's say that in India, when you say that poverty and honesty is difficult for it to coexist. Difficult, not that it cannot, but most of the time it's difficult. So someone has got nothing to lose, 7 years in life, he doesn't care. So we have adopted a legal system which is British by nature, and they had their own way of bringing it up. So in its implementation in India and its system that we follow, it has got its own limitations. So that was the, let's say, the aim to highlight one of those issues. And second, of course, was also to bring about, because when you talk about the subject and there is a certain amount of, let's say, the exploitation related aspects which happens in this particular case. You have talked about a guy who's working for a cause. Now he doesn't know, he's been asked to do something, he's doing it. So whether it is right or wrong, he doesn't care. He's that LTD man still thinks that LTD is working for LTD. He does not know the organization is gone. So a lot of it has been contextual with respect to writing of the novel and not with any other intent, excepting for this one aspect which was to be highlighted. So I have left it to the readers to be judgmental about it. There are some people who have told you also that it is, let's say, what is the word? Overtly, let's say, explicit. Some of the readers have said.
Have they
But
also
some of the
said,
others,
has anyone reacted, Shibu, when in that rape scene or love-making scene, whatever you call it, that it was a bit patriarchal? The patriarchal aspect came out because you're saying that the woman will enjoy it eventually.
yeah. So that's what I said. That is what the whole thing. That means if you read the whole thing, that whole read book in its entirety, it will not follow that perspective. But of course, if you select that one paragraph and say that that is the perspective of a man who has got an agenda behind, that's the history behind it, why he is like that. There's a background and history to it, which will come out later. But if someone reads only that one chapter and starts forming judgment about it, then of course, yes. If you read it in isolation, it will come out like that.
Right.
But I expect that people read the book should read the book in its entirety, and then correlate, and then to see whether the character is right or wrong. Then, as I said,
Yes.
I have tried not to be judgmental in it, and all the characters in this book have got shades of grey.
Yeah, and apart from the gray, you're also been very realistic. People react in different ways. And that's what is important, and that is what is happening. It would be foolhardy to say that these impulses are not there in us. It is always there, and if we sweep it under the carpet, that wouldn't be the right thing. So in that sense, I think that there is a point in your favor. Now, I think we are nearing the end of the time. And before I conclude, I would request you to read a portion of your novel which you think might be very interesting for us. We don't have much time, a little bit. If you could please read us something, any place.
Sure, okay. Say, Tony D'Souza was 3 years old when he lost his parents. His father, Chokalingam Acharya, was a businessman who ran a jewelry shop in the city, and they stayed in Watala in the suburbs of Colombo City. His mother, Luda, was Polish and had been backpacking in Sri Lanka when she met Chokalingam. There was a whirlwind romance and a courtship that followed. They were married in 1974. They had 3 children in quick succession, 2 girls and a boy. The girls had gone on their father, and the son Kannan had gone on his mother. In the 80s, Sri Lanka was in the throes of a struggle between the Tamils and the Sinhalese. The Tamils had taken up arms against the Sinhala government in the northern part of Sri Lanka. The family did not think the troubles in the north of the country would ever affect them. On the 25th of July 1983, the family was on their way back home when a frenzied Sinhala mob attacked them. They locked their parents in the car and pulled Kannan and his 2 sisters out. The car was set on fire. And the mob was laughing when his father came out of the car, engulfed in flames, grabbed his sisters, and ran back to the car and locked them in. Amidst the laughter of the Sinhalese, he heard his father's voice shouting to him, Kanna, maternal poratwada. Now, this I just said, because this is an event which has stayed with me ever since that event. First time I read it, even so many decades down the line, it always comes live in front of me as of the plight of a father who has to kill his own young children with him for no fault of theirs or fault of his.
No, it's absolutely moving, and not just this passage that you've read. Your novel is a path-breaking novel. I have no hesitation in saying that from my experience of cinema and literature. It is an Indian novel, definitely international in its ambit, in its scope, and its aspirations. It is extremely interesting, intriguing, and it has also created a new style, the way you use quotes, quotations, pithy sayings, maxims, which pepper your text. The style is extremely novel in the true sense of the word, and it is something that stays with you. It's something intriguing and interesting. Congratulations to you. Please keep writing. And this is really the stuff that dreams are made of. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ashok. Thank you so much.
Thank you so, so much for this very, very interesting, enlightening, and riveting discussion. Thank you so much, Ashok Viswanathan, for giving us the time, the scope, and the opportunity. You were wonderful. And Shibu, of course, we are great fans of yours. We love your writing. We love the way you speak. We enjoyed the session. And I would request viewers, if we will put up the Amazon link, if you could kindly buy the book online, it would really, really be nice. As readers, you'll enjoy Faith and the Beloved. And thank you so much. And Ashok Viswanathan, I look forward to more such sessions. And Shivu, Mr. Viswanathan has already wished you that we are looking forward to your next book. Thank you so much on behalf of Readers and Writers Club. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mona. Thank you so much, Vishwanath. Thank you.
Thank you.